Good evening and welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's public comment hearing in case number 9666 regarding the applications of Skipjack Offshore Energy LLC and U.S. Wind Incorporated for round 2, year 1 of the state's offshore wind solicitation process. My name is Jason Stanek. I am the chairman of the PSC. I'm accompanied by my colleagues tonight, Commissioners Michael Richard, Anthony O'Donnell, Obi Linton, and Mindy Herman. Pursuant to the Clean Energy Act of 2019, the Commission is required to review applications for proposed offshore wind projects seeking offshore wind renewable energy credits, otherwise known as ORECs. The first application period began on January 1st, 2021, and we have 2 additional subsequent solicitations with those applications beginning on January 1st, 2022 and 2023. The Commission has received 5 applications for round 2, year 1 between 2 distinct developers. The proposed offshore wind leases where the development would occur are located off of Maryland's coast on the outer continental shelf. Federal law gives the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management oversight responsibility for all renewable energy projects on the outer continental shelf. Thus, the development of offshore wind lease areas is in federal jurisdiction since these areas are located in federal waters. As a part of its review, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management requires site assessment plans and construction and operation plans to be submitted and approved before an offshore wind project can begin construction. Both plans must also be in compliance with the Federal National Environmental Policy Act, otherwise known as NEPA. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to allow the Commission to hear from interested members of the public regarding the contents of these applications. The Commissioners are here to listen to your comments. We will not be able to answer any questions about the applications or provide our individual views as the litigated proceeding in this case is now underway. We do encourage that those who are not able to speak tonight to provide written comments via our public comment portal, which is located on our PSC homepage. We will accept comments through November 19th of this year. There is only one ground rule tonight for the participants. Since we have so many people registered to speak tonight, we will be limiting the length of your comments to 3 minutes per participant. The Secretary will thank you for your comments and your audio connection will end at the end of 3 minutes. If you do find yourself running out of time, please put your thoughts in writing. We will read every comment that is filed. Also, if your comments are very similar to another person's comments, you may wish to associate your position with theirs rather than repeating earlier comments. We will begin tonight by hearing from your elected officials. They will speak first, and then we will move through the list of registered attendees in the order in which the emails requesting to participate this evening were received. Thank you again for your participation this evening. Madam Secretary, if you may please call the first speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First on our list, we have Senator Paul Pinsky, followed by Kimberly Shiloh, representing Delegate Benjamin Brooks, and then Matthew James, the Ocean City Council President.
Thank you, Chairman Stanek and the members of the PSC for this opportunity to speak before you this evening. I urge you to, I'm State Senator Paul Pinsky, 22nd District. I urge you to fully approve the full 1,200 megawatts as soon as possible without haste. I speak from a unique perspective. I was the original sponsor of the first offshore wind bill, I think in 2011 or thereabout. So I remember the struggle very well. I also think we have no time to lose. We must move to clean energy to mitigate the effects of climate change, the more severe storms, the flooding, the sea level rise, the loss of farmland due to saltwater intrusion, and of course the wildfires and drought in the west and the south of the country as well. We must do this to adhere to the state's renewable portfolio standards bill that has been passed twice. And the sooner and the larger we build these projects, we will also create a demand for more industrial production. The results will be more jobs and industry in our state and nearby. Yes, I know there are some objections to these projects, but I am totally convinced that adding wind turbines many miles off the coast will not affect tourism in Ocean City one iota. And if we don't move ahead, what will happen to the very same tourist destination? Imagine if the 80 or 90-day summer season sees more extreme flooding. What happens if the coastal highway experiences 5 or 10 or even 15 days of flooding where people can't reach their hotels or their restaurants or the beach? What happens then? It is incumbent for all of these reasons that you forge ahead post haste. And let me conclude with this. I want to keep this very brief. I know there are other witnesses. You are the Public Service Commission. That is your title. You provide a public service, and I believe you need to fulfill that mission. You need to approve the expansion as soon as possible and encourage efforts so those barges are ready to go and begin construction. The people of the state of Maryland expect no less, and I encourage you to move forward with approval of these applications. Thank you for your time and for your work for the state of Maryland. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Next on our list is Kimberly Shiloh, representing Delegate Benjamin Brooks, followed by Matthew James, Ocean City Council President.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, I am Kimberly Shiloh, Legislative Director to Delegate Benjamin Brooks, 10th Legislative District for Baltimore County. On behalf of Delegate Brooks, I offer support of the offshore wind projects off the coast of Ocean City, Maryland. In November of 2018, a federal report advised that climate change is affecting the natural environment, agriculture, energy production and use, land and water resources, transportation, and human health and welfare across the United States and its territories. There is no denying that climate change is real, it's here, and we must take action to combat it. We have come a long way since that report. In 2019, the Maryland General Assembly passed key legislation in the Clean Energy Jobs Act, CEJA, to address climate change, allowing Maryland to set an example as a leader in responsible and clean energy projects. CEJA sets a goal of 50% renewable energy by 2030 and calls for an increase of offshore wind from 400 to 600 milliwatts, equal to 1 power plant. Offshore wind energy is Maryland's largest renewable energy resource. We have developers ready to focus their investments solely in Maryland to make our state an offshore wind hub in the region, prioritizing investments in Baltimore County, City, and the Eastern Shore. The potential economic impact of the developments is stunning. Even by conservative estimates, these offshore wind projects could produce 3,500 direct construction jobs, over $300 million in construction labor income, 100 direct operation jobs, and over $500 million in operations labor income over 25 years. Supporting these projects allows Maryland to take aggressive action against climate change while stimulating the state's workforce and economy. For these reasons, Delegate Brooks offers support of the offshore wind projects.
Thank you. Final for our government and elected officials is Matthew James, and then we will begin calling the rest of our participants for the evening, starting with Stacey Hartwell, followed by Mario Ramirez Costello and Victoria Venable.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Matt James, and I am the City Council President in Ocean City. First, I would like to say that Ocean City has been very consistent with our requests. We have attempted many times to work with the developers of the currently proposed projects to find a solution that works for all parties. Our continued position is that we support green energy. We even support offshore wind, as long as the turbines are not visible from Ocean City. This is a very reasonable request from the town. Other states have already approved offshore wind projects, but the viewshed of their coastal communities has been protected. New York legislation requires offshore wind turbines to be a minimum of 20 miles offshore. In Virginia, offshore wind turbines are required to be at least 27 miles offshore. And North Carolina beaches are protected by a 30-mile buffer between their coastline and the offshore wind farm project. Ocean City has one major industry, and that is tourism. We have what they want, People travel from many different states to enjoy Maryland's only oceanfront resort. Our clean, pristine, and natural views draw millions of visitors to Ocean City every year. Between the tax revenue generated by Ocean City businesses and the property taxes collected from Ocean City's $10.5 billion assessable base, we have a tremendous positive impact on Maryland's economy. Why would we jeopardize that? Senator Pinsky stated that he has been actively involved in this process since 2011. A lot has changed since then, including the turbine size. I would urge the commission to make sure we get this right the first time around. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list, we will go with Stacey Hartwell, then Mario Ramirez Costello, Victoria Venable, Kim Quillen, and Todd Allen.
Good evening, Chairman Stanek, members of the PSC, colleagues, and concerned citizens. My name is Stacey Hartwell. I serve as the Chair for Environmental and Climate Justice for the NAACP Maryland State Conference. On behalf of our conference and President Willie Flowers, I bring you greetings. At the NAACP, we don't believe the color of your skin, your family's income, nor the community in which you live should be determinants as to whether you live or die. Sadly, this is not the case in Maryland, especially for communities of color in Baltimore, Brandywine, and Bladensburg, to name a few. Baltimore City has the highest rates of death related to air quality in the country. A Black child is 500% more likely to die from respiratory illness than a white child. We must act to stem the tide of this environmental degradation for the benefit of all Marylanders. People want to relocate to, work, invest, play, and live in Maryland to prosper, to thrive, and not to witness their neighbors suffering. I am here to urge the PSC to award the full allocation of 1,200 megawatts of ORECs during this application round to ensure Maryland can expand our access to clean energy, create good jobs across the state, and help begin to mitigate the devastating health impacts of deadly carbon emissions. These projects must be a part of our state's response to climate change. We are in an untenable situation with escalating consequences of holding on to dirty power generation. The extreme impacts of climate change are getting worse and will not go away unless we do something. The devastation from recent hurricanes is proof positive. Consider the unprecedented disaster recently visited upon Annapolis from deadly Hurricane Ida. And to our friends who reside in Ocean City, concerned their view of the ocean with turbines 13 to 20 miles offshore, try to remember your fellow Americans who lost everything: homes, businesses, some their lives, in this season's hurricanes and fires. These are not alternate facts. I don't mean to be the harbinger of gloom. I am here to herald the meaningful expansion of economic activity, especially in underserved communities in Maryland. The future looks bright, and we can do this by embracing renewable energy. Offshore wind has the potential to empower economically challenged communities and open new economic pathways for minority businesses, thanks to the requirements established by the General Assembly. We also urge the PSC to award ORECs to the applications with the strongest, most substantial inclusion of Maryland-based MBEs in all phases of their project. The public and NAACP strongly supports clean energy in Maryland, and we implore the Public Service Commission to approve offshore wind projects that will make us a leader in climate energy, a champion for environmental equity, and literally help save the planet for our children. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Next on our list is Mario Ramirez Costello, Victoria Venable, Kim Quillen, Todd Allen, and Brian Moran.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide support for the Ocean City wind farm. I understand that some of you still have reservations about it. I hope I can give you a new perspective to consider if you're against it. I have decided not to talk about how wind farming can help us curb global warming or sea level rise, as you probably will hear or have heard from other speakers tonight. Instead, I will focus on some other positive aspects of the industry. The first one that I would like to talk about is this diversification. Any businessman will tell you how important it is to have a diversified portfolio. The same is true for energy sources. Last summer's hack of the Colonial Pipeline demonstrated the need for a decentralization and diversification of the ways we obtain our energy. Bringing wind farming to Maryland, as well as the expansion of other renewable energy sources, is not a commodity. It is a matter of national security. Pollution control. Burning coal, as it was mentioned before, dioxide, mercury, and other heavy metals into the atmosphere, as well as particulate matter. Many of these emissions have been linked to respiratory illnesses, loss of pregnancy, and in the case of heavy metals, to neurological effects and developmental damage to humans, especially children. Wind farming can reduce our reliance on coal and other fossil fuels for electricity, ensuring the health of our children. Lastly, wind farming will create jobs. There are projections that state that wind farm can create up to 5,000 or more local jobs just on ports, supply chain, maintenance, and manufacturing. If we don't advocate to keep these projects in Maryland, those jobs will just move to a different state. For these reasons, I urge the Commission to approve the development of this project here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next on our list are Venable, Quillen, Allen, Moran, and Donald Goldberg.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is Victoria Venable, and I'm here representing Chesapeake Climate Action Network, known as CCAN, as their Maryland Director. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of offshore wind development in Maryland. CCAN is a nonprofit organization dedicated exclusively to fighting climate change in the Chesapeake region. We envision an equitable energy future where truly clean sources of power sustain every aspect of our lives, and offshore wind is an integral part of that future. Because we understand the urgency of climate change and therefore the urgency of shifting our energy systems away from fossil fuels, we support granting ORECs for the maximum number of megawatts authorized by the Clean Energy Jobs Act, with strong labor, equity, and environmental impact measures, and without further delay. It is undeniable that offshore wind in Maryland will be key in meeting our energy needs and mitigating the climate crisis. It is crucial that we move this industry forward now. The projects proposed for this lease area will power tens of thousands of Maryland homes, create hundreds of permanent Maryland-based jobs, and contribute billions of dollars to Maryland's GDP over the next generation. Failing to capitalize on the opportunities of Maryland's greatest renewable resource, offshore wind, will rob current and future generations of economic opportunity, energy sufficiency, and climate stability. We are at a crossroads for clean energy and climate change, and I urge you to choose the path that promises opportunity, not devastation. There are no reasonable or factually supported points of opposition against offshore wind worthy of delaying or sacrificing this opportunity. Since initiating the leasing process, BOEM has funded or considered numerous studies to collect information about the marine environment and to support decisions concerning offshore renewable energy development. BOEM and other federal agencies took great care to site the lease area, ensuring there would be no significant negative impacts on the environment, shipping lanes, the fishing industry, or the local community. While the Commission may hear from opponents through this public hearing and comment period, I urge you to trust the science of BOEM, NOAA, and the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Furthermore, I urge you to evaluate the opposition's testimony from the eyes of future generations. If we do not expeditiously and fervently transition to clean energy sources now, Maryland gems like Ocean City will no longer exist for future enjoyment due to sea level rise caused by our reliance on fossil fuels. Thank you for your time, and once again, I urge you to grant ORECs for the maximum number of megawatts authorized by the Clean Energy Jobs Act. Have a lovely night.
Thank you. Next on our list is Quillen, followed by Allen, Moran, Goldberg, and Brian Strong.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Kim Quillen. I concur with the last three speakers. I am local. I grew up in the Sinapatuxent Bay, live on the Sinapatuxent Bay. I'm a biologist for some context. For my job, I have to read up weekly on ecological research, and it's rough because there's not a place on the planet that's not been negatively, as you know, impacted by humans. It's really distressing. And so until recently, the major impacts have been from habitat destruction, pollution, overharvesting invasive species. And this has been severe, right? Even right here on Delmarva. So As you may know, it's not an exaggeration to say that the loss of species and ecosystem function is more rapid now than it's been for 66 million years when an asteroid struck the Gulf of Mexico and caused a mass extinction. This is sobering. And now climate change is roaring in addition to these other factors, and having measurably alarming effects. So I am emotionally worn out, and so are my college students. They are experiencing an existential crisis about their future, and they're angry that we've been sleeping at the wheel. So if the current proposal was to install 100 oil or gas rigs in the ocean floor off of Ocean City, I'd be passionately against it. No way. But I'm strongly in favor of this wind project, because this represents, as those eloquent speakers have said, a shift to a life-saving, sustainable strategy. We are in triage mode now. There's more to gain from this bold move than to lose. Do I think US Wind and others should complete the project responsibly with oversight? Of course. Will there be impacts on wildlife? Yes. But I'm grateful that there has been a process in place to minimize those impacts. I'm grateful for the partnership with so many environmental organizations like UMCES and others to inform these decisions. I am really grateful for MARCO, that Mid-Atlantic Ocean Data Portal. It's remarkable. I've poured through the layers and I can see with my own eyes the multivariate analysis is taking place to mitigate these complications, to enable Atlantic migratory bird flyway, the marine mammals, shipping lanes, and everything else. I get it. I'm grateful because there's a history of success elsewhere with these turbines. This is not a novel proposition, and I'm grateful to see that the state of Maryland is pivoting towards clean energy jobs in this way. Thank you. It is a relief. Some say, why here? Why Ocean City? The answer for me is that we need this type of action everywhere and by everyone. As for the view, honestly, when a new cell tower goes up, most people feel relief that they have better cell service. I think these turbines will have the same effect. People will embrace them. They are a sign of a healthier, more sustainable, more ethical, and more economically viable future. So I've been really worried that my kids will not be able to inherit my home by the water when they're my age due to sea level rise and destructive storms. We're watching our marsh and forest disappear. But this project gives me hope. Thank you for that hope. I desperately need a sense of hope. Please do approve this expansion so we can move forward. And I want to end with a quote from my 22-year-old daughter to get a voice from the next generation into this hearing. When I told her about the proposal to place more than 100 large turbines way offshore of Ocean City, she said, and I paraphrase, "That's freaking cool." So thanks for the opportunity to speak. Let's move forward.
Thank you. Next on our list is Todd Allen, followed by Brian Moran, Donald Goldberg, Brian Strong, and Ruth White.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, my name is Todd Allen. I'm a union iron worker at a Local 5, Washington, D.C. I also live locally right here on the shore, about 30 minutes north of Ocean City in Sussex County, Delaware. And I just want to thank the commission for allowing me this opportunity to speak in favor of the higher wind turbines. These wind turbines are extremely important, not only for our environment, but also for the workers that can put these up. We need this on the shore. My local is 1,700 members strong, and this is one thing that we want to do. It's on the tip of everyone's tongue. We want the opportunity to be able to put these windmills up and provide clean energy, clean renewable energy for not just the people of Ocean City, but the people who live inland too, the people that can't necessarily afford the waterfront property inside Ocean City. Now, I know there's a lot of concern about tourism, and I want to just offer this one statement. I know everybody believes that the tourism may be affected by the wind turbines, but what people don't seem to realize is people go to Ocean City not necessarily for the ocean, but they go to Ocean City to escape their own reality. The waves are going to continuously come and hit the beach. They're never going to stop coming to Ocean City because a wind turbine is 20 miles off the shore. We need to do something now to be able to make sure that we have workers working and energy producing in a clean way. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list are Moran, Goldberg, Strong, White, and Susan Olson.
Hi, I'm Brian Moran. I'm the Vice Chair of the Delaware chapter of the Surfrider Foundation. Thank you to the committee for allowing me to speak in support of these wind farm programs. Delaware is a stakeholder in these projects, even though the planned wind farms are off the coast of Ocean City, because the cables that are going to be coming in from the wind farms to bring the energy are going to be making landfall in coastal Delaware. So it's important to us that these programs and these projects are well planned and well managed, and there's transparency upon any issues and things of those sort. But Delaware is definitely a key stakeholder in this. As far as the Surfrider Foundation, the Ocean-Based Climate Solutions Act, which was entered into Congress earlier this year, is a top priority for our organization. This act supports the development of renewable energy sources, which includes well-planned and sited offshore wind energy. We helped write that bill. We were very active in supporting that bill and getting it pushed forward. So this is a key initiative for us. As far as Delaware, moving to wind will help reduce impacts of climate change, as others have said, which poses a significant threat to the risk to the Delaware coast. As we're all aware, Delaware and the entire eastern shore is at sea level, and any increase in sea level rise would be catastrophic to our coast as well as the Maryland coast. So again, we would like to speak in support of this, and to support what Ms. Quillen had said. I was just recently in New England and saw one of the wind farms from the coast, and it is pretty freaking cool. So we would like to support this project, and again, thank you for giving me time to speak.
Thank you. Next on our list are Goldberg, Strong, White, Olson, and Jacqueline Grindrod. If Donald Goldberg isn't here, next would be Brian Strong, followed by Ruth White, Susan Olson, Jacqueline Grindrod, and Debbie Gousha. After Brian Strong is Ruth White.
Ms. White, we see you, but you're on mute.
Yes, hello. I was raised in Maryland. I went to Ocean City as a child. I took my mother and my own daughter to Ocean City. Now my daughter has a son, and in some years I have accompanied them. I love Ocean City, but I will not go there. I will go to the nearby Delaware beaches if the leaders of Ocean City continue to delay offshore wind development. I would love to see stately wind turbines 13 miles or even less or more off the coast of Ocean City. I am a climate activist with the Howard County Climate Action, a local 350 chapter, an activist with the Sierra Club, CCAN, and many more. But I'm not speaking for these organizations tonight. I'm speaking as a grandmother who is a climate activist. In 2010, I and many of my friends attended the Wind Vision 2010 conference in Annapolis, where a broad collection of business, labor, and environmental groups joined together to a standing room only audience in Annapolis. We heard then a recent study by the Able Foundation connected with the University of Delaware that stated that offshore wind power could produce the equivalent of 2/3 of Maryland's current electrical demand. And offer jobs and electric reliability and price stability. Where I live in Columbia, Maryland, we held an offshore wind forum in a library in a conference room holding 100 people that was full. Citizens have been eager for this, and there were similar wind conferences held all over the state. We supported the Siege Act that's already been mentioned. We're eager to transfer to clean energy. I and many of my friends are signing up for community solar and using energy choice in Maryland to choose wind energy from other states. But I would like the wind for Maryland, right in or close to Maryland. There's a palpable hunger for clean energy in Maryland that only increases as we hear of worse and worse weather in the world, in the US and in Maryland, in our own Ellicott City, where in Howard County, where I live. Please extend the offshore wind as much as possible and get these projects that we've been waiting for so long off the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list is Susan Olson, followed by Jacqueline Grindrod, Debbie Gousha, Hope Clark, and Michael Moss. After Susan Olson is Jacqueline Grindrod.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me, everybody? Good evening. My name is Jacqueline Grindrod, and I'm a resident of Berlin. I am also a frequent visitor to Ocean City with my family, and I am a lifelong lover of the earth. I speak tonight in favor of wind energy and specifically in favor of this subject wind project. No form of energy will ever be perfect. We no longer have the luxury of waiting for that. We are in a race now that we are losing. Choice now is not between this view or that view, or this distance or that distance. The choice now is between cleaner renewable energy sources or burning up the earth. It's that simple, and it's that stark. I vote for saving the earth, and I hope that the commission will too. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Debbie Gousha, followed by Hope Clark, Michael Moss, Chelsea Moss, and Nancy Wilkinson.
Good evening. My name is Debbie Gousha, and I'm a resident of Ocean Pines, Maryland. I usually go into Ocean City about 3 or 4 times a week to either walk on the boardwalk, eat at a restaurant, or just spend a little time enjoying the ocean views. I would like to express my support for the expansion of wind turbines in Ocean City for the following reasons. 1, it's a wonderful opportunity to provide well-paying jobs for those in our community. Why should we forfeit these job opportunities to other states along the coast that have decided to invest in clean energy? As outlined by others who have spoken, the placement of these turbines took many factors into consideration and cannot be simply moved back as some have suggested. This would add considerable time and cost to the completion of the project and may not even be possible to do. We are now facing the real-life consequences of allowing greenhouse gases to alter the atmosphere and impact the climate in ways that will be disastrous for future generations. According to scientists, we have very little time to change the trajectory we are on. A recent study published in the journal Science stated that children born in 2021 will live in an Earth with 7 times more heat waves, twice as many wildfires, and almost 3 times as many droughts, river floods, and crop failures. Even with the most stringent climate change mitigation strategies, people under 40 could face even more severe consequences if we don't take action now to transition to clean, renewable energy. Scientists are calling a red alert for our planet, and that is a very scary proposition for most people to accept. Now we can put our heads in the sand and pretend that this is not happening, or we can do our best for future generations by at least trying to avoid the worst consequences of a changing climate by reevaluating the way we address our energy needs. Our children will be holding us accountable for the decisions we make now. I see this decision as one based on moral values. Should we protect and preserve the rights of some property owners and tourists who might be concerned about the effect of the wind turbines on their view shed, even if that effect is minuscule? Or should we be more concerned about protecting and preserving the rights of our children and grandchildren to live in a habitable earth by quickly making the transition to renewable energy? Thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts.
Thank you. Next on the list is Susan Olson, followed by Hope Clark, Michael Moss, Chelsea Moss, and Nancy Wilkinson. Next, we have Hope Clark.
Yes, hi. My name is Hope Clark, and I live in Chestertown, Maryland, here in Kent County on the Eastern Shore. I'm an artist and have been working in community development creatively to support the most vulnerable parts of our population for 15 years, most recently advocating for legislation to wean us off the use of fossil fuels. I'm a volunteer group leader for the Citizens Climate Lobby Chestertown chapter, as well as the Citizens Climate Lobby liaison for Andy Harris, representing 272 citizen climate lobby members that want to see climate action. Presently, I work as the Maryland organizer for Climate Exchange Maryland. I see the fossil fuel industry and pollution creating the most harm in our communities. We are all witness to the devastating effects of our changing climate. We know we must wean ourselves off of burning fossil fuels causing the devastation. We must provide the infrastructure we need for clean energy in our state so that our lives, our livelihoods, and our environment can thrive. That's why I'm asking you to approve the maximum number of kilowatt credits. The economic and environmental and health benefits to Maryland have been determined. I've been buying 100% wind power from other locations. And like Ruth Alice White, I want my green energy to come from Maryland. I listened as you did to the many hours
Madam Secretary, it appears that we lost Ms. Clark.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Clark, sometimes shutting off your video can help with the audio, but if not, if that doesn't work, we might have to try and circle back. We did hear a large majority of your testimony, but I can try and work with you some more. We'll move on to Michael Moss.
Good evening. My name is Michael Moss, and I want to start by expressing my gratitude to all on the commission. This is a very exciting moment since passage in 2013, the Maryland Offshore Wind Energy Act. All prior testimony has highlighted the numerous benefits associated with offshore wind, but I felt compelled to share my own experience. For 40 years, I've been a real-time on the waterfront service provider and was invited long ago to become a member of the Maryland Business Network for Offshore Wind. Struggling to remain afloat in the decimated industry of ship repair and recognizing that there was a large maritime component associated with offshore wind, in addition to knowing that the OREC requirements for local content were restrictive, we decided to learn all we could. What's exciting is that our small family-owned and operated Baltimore City company with few staff has obtained new business because several of the research ships doing subsea mapping and geotechnical examination off the coast are utilizing our services when they come to the pier. When a vessel ties up in port, the economic ripple effect is realized across the state. As a reminder, the Port of Baltimore falls under the Department of Transportation, which is the economic engine responsible for building the roads, bridges, and highways across all of Maryland, including the Eastern Shore. Offshore wind development is complex, yet it's supported by the masses, including organized labor, heavy industry, the maritime community, environmentalists, academia, and faith-based groups, all with different agendas, but a common interest. After BOEM advertised and publicly invited interested parties regarding potential lease areas for offshore wind development, specific sites were identified for consideration up and down the coast from North Carolina to Maine. Requests for comments were sought, and those interested were provided an opportunity to convey their concerns. After extensive review, U.S. Coast Guard input, hearings, and evaluation by stakeholders, the final lease areas were selected, auctioned, and investments made. Harmony must exist for projects to be successful. Community support is critical. And since all Maryland ratepayers are impacted by the OREC, the process needs to move forward. Maryland was very early to participate, but has since lost its first mover advantage to surrounding states who are more ambitious. There are many rewards, including the establishment of a foundation factory, Sparrows Point Steel, at the former Bethlehem shipyard, which used to employ thousands of workers, where now only a few remain. Maryland's policy and the RPS was an invitation and prompted huge investments by the developers. Construction requires massive capital, so long-term contracts are needed to proceed with confidence. We have two companies who are good stewards and have done this work before. We must encourage collaboration and cooperation, not competition. I suggest the award again be split. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next on our list is Chelsea Moss, followed by Nancy Wilkinson, Jesse Buggs, Ryan James, and Brian Ditzler.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chelsea Moss. I'm Michael Moss's daughter, and I thank you for listening to me speak tonight. I greatly agree and appreciate all of those that have spoken in favor. I'm a young business owner. I established my business in summer of 2019, specifically in pursuit of the opportunities that lay ahead within the emerging offshore wind industry. Since then, I've been fortunate enough to work in some capacity with both developers whose succeeding projects are at stake. Having traveled to many conferences, both nationally and internationally, undergone safety training and received certifications so that I can visit the turbines offshore and develop numerous relationships, I am in complete dedication to this industry. I respectfully urge what is necessary and that you grant approval to both developers' projects so that I and many others can continue to invest in and reap the benefits of a more sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list is Nancy Wilkinson, followed by Jesse Buggs, Ryan James, Brian Ditzler, and Andrew Hines. After Wilkinson is Jesse Buggs. After Buggs is Ryan James.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening and provide my support for offshore wind development in Maryland. My name is Ryan James, and I'm the chef and owner of Mother's Cantina with 2 locations here in Ocean City, Maryland. I am thrilled to see the revitalization of Sparrows Point in Baltimore, which will create about 3,000 good jobs in the community that ultimately travel to spend money here on the Eastern Shore. As a small business owner, I'm also excited by the prospect of good jobs added to our local economy on the shore. The offshore wind project will support approximately 1,500 jobs. Those good jobs will provide year-round incomes that will in turn support the rental market and a local year-round business. Also, as a parent of young children, already interested in our local STEM and STAT programs, I know they will look to offshore wind and the offshore wind project as real-world examples of good, clean energy jobs in our local community. The project will be a great opportunity for local educators to get kids interested in the expanded STAT program. Thank you for allowing me to say my testimony, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next on our list is Brian Ditzler, followed by Andrew Hines, and then Arlo Hemphill, Lonnie Vick, and Peter Youngbluth. After Ditzler is Andrew Hines.
Yes, hello. Good evening. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to comment. I'm going to focus on our renewable portfolio standard and the fact that it is kind of a racist mess at this point. We are subsidizing harm to communities like South Baltimore and Chester, Pennsylvania, through waste incineration, which releases lead, mercury, and is a direct cause of the high asthma rates in Baltimore City. So we need to get waste incineration out of our RPS, and we need to put more wind in it, as much wind as possible, and any other renewable source. Likewise, we also have waste methane to energy in our RPS, and also biomass in our RPS. Those things are bad as well. They harm the local communities where those ostensibly clean, but actually very harming energy sources are used. So again, more wind. To comment to Ocean City, the Ocean City City Council, it is a height of hypocrisy for them to claim sightline ruination or anything like that. If they had some kind of ordinance that their buildings can only be 3 stories, they might have some claim to that. But without that, it's just pure hypocrisy. And the other thing is, so in communities like in Baltimore City, we are continuing to lose population. And part of it is because we have one of the highest asthma rates in the country. And that's why you need to fix the RPS. You are subsidizing harm, direct harm, every single day. Every single day that incinerator burns, you are harming people here in Maryland, and you are causing people not to move to Baltimore City. So yes, please, more wind. And Ocean City, you folks, you need to get real. I will join the boycott and never set foot in Ocean City again if you all don't come along and be members of this state and not pariahs. Thank you very much for the time to comment this evening.
Thank you. Next on our list is Arlo Hemphill, followed by Lonnie Vick, and then Peter Youngbluth, John Gergrid, and Donald Benzing.
Hi, my name is Arlo Hemphill. I am currently, I'm talking to you from 12th Street in Ocean City, Maryland at my family's condo. I'm currently a resident of Baltimore County, but have been a longtime Ocean City resident before that, and grew up here living in the summers because my family has a business on the boardwalk and still has that business on the boardwalk. I strongly support the existing wind farm plan as stated without changes, and I am completely against the town of Ocean City's councils wanting to change it or move it out further. There was a long public process around 2012 in which there were public meetings down here in Ocean City and in Annapolis that gave people the opportunity to speak their minds at that time. It had overwhelming support at the time. Maryland DNA and BOEM did offshore surveys, both for biodiversity and looking at the seafloor. That took many years and a lot of money to do, and it was all done. And now, after all of this, the town of Ocean City is all of a sudden against it. I'm also an environmentalist. I'm not speaking on behalf of my job tonight. I'm speaking as a private citizen. But what I want to say to you guys and to the town of Ocean City is that I became an environmentalist because of Ocean City. Growing up on the coastal bays, crabbing and fishing, surfing in Assateague, that instilled a love for the natural world in me. And we're going to lose the natural world if we don't get off fossil fuels. This project is not just about Ocean City. This project is important to the nation. It's important to showing this nation that we can create a huge new project of renewable energy in a way that Europe has done, but for the first time in the United States. And it will help lead the transition. So I just really support this project, and I thank you for allowing me to have my say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on our list is Lonnie Vick, followed by Peter Youngbloth, John Gergrig, Donald Benzing, and Jared Johnson. After Vic is Peter Youngbloth.
Yes. Hello, commissioners, and thank you for having this hearing so I can call and express my support for offshore wind in Maryland. I worked for 4 years out of Ocean City on clam boats and fishing trawlers, and I do not see offshore wind as being detrimental to fishing and clamming. In fact, just the opposite. I think it might increase fish stocks. But I think that we can sustainably harvest both wind and food from the ocean without there being any conflict. And I think the science is well on the way to working out all of those details. In the same way, I'm also an avid bird watcher. And again, I do not see any conflict. I think the danger to birds is not wind turbines, it is climate change. And so actually offshore wind turbines will improve the chances for birds to survive. Ultimately, I think what it comes down to is that, we here in the United States have already burned up our quota of fossil fuels and emitted all the greenhouse gases that we can. Any more greenhouse gases, we are going to have to remove them from the atmosphere at enormous cost to ourselves, much greater cost than what it will take to generate renewable electricity. And if we don't remove it, then our grandchildren will have to do it, or someone else who's not responsible for putting the carbon dioxide up in the atmosphere. So I say this is our responsibility. We need to tackle it. And our best resource here in Maryland is offshore wind. So I hope the commission will approve both of these projects in full. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is John Gergrig, followed by Donald Benzing, followed by Jared Johnson, Dana Simpson, and Deborah Batiste.
Hi, everyone. My name's John Garrick. I'm a city councilman here in Ocean City, Maryland. Thank you for the time tonight and all the feedback. So I had this big speech planned, and it just went off the rails listening to all these comments. And I think just going to set the record straight because we're being labeled as obstructionists here in Ocean City, at least the Ocean City Mayor and Council. And I encourage everyone to know the facts. We have not delayed the project. Arlo Hemphill, Michael Moss, Chelsea Moss talk about the deal that was struck 12 years ago and everyone had input, and that is exactly true. I was not on the city council then, but Ocean City was part of those discussions and supported offshore wind. As a matter of fact, we've never been opposed to offshore wind. We've supported it every step along the way, but we did not break the deal. And instead of holding the parties who did break the deal accountable, you have an easy and convenient scapegoat in the town of Ocean City. The wind companies have changed this deal. They've waited years. And what have they done? We had dropped a couple buoys out in the ocean. You know, we were promised a Met Tower a couple of years ago to start the measurement. Where is it? It's still not out there. So meanwhile, as the delay happened, not with the town of Ocean City, these are your partners, the wind turbine companies, the multinational companies where Maryland ratepayers are making them rich while the power goes to Delaware, and they gloat about that. Brian Moran says he's a Delaware as a stakeholder. That's true, because the wind companies go up to Delaware and gloat and basically mock the Public Service Commission in the state of Maryland by saying that Delaware is getting free power paid for by the ratepayers of Maryland. That's what they say. So your partners, are they partners? Because they're the ones who've delayed. And during the delay, the 2 megawatt towers that were 13 miles offshore are now 12 and 14 megawatt towers. And when we supported the towers, we've always been consistent. Let's protect our viewshed. It's not about oceanfront property owners. This is about all taxpayers in the town of Ocean City, Maryland. Most of our tax revenue comes from property taxes. Another 20% comes from tourism-related taxes, room tax, food tax, etc. Even the wind industry agrees with the mayor and council's concern of the economic impact concerns that visible wind turbines, and now these are gigantic and closer to the shore than ever. These are like an army of terminators. Here, this is the purest area, one of the purest areas of the state environmentally. People come here from not just Marylanders, but all over. We're seeing people from all over the world visit Ocean City now for the purity of our beach and ocean. And here's what the Baltimore Sun and the wind industry said. Opinion research shows that Marylanders support offshore wind power generation, with roughly 2/3 of state residents telling Gonzalez Research in a Wind Energy Commission poll that the presence of turbines would make no difference in their decision to rent or buy property in Ocean City. So think about that. 2/3 of people would have no impact. Flip it around. 1/3 it will. So I encourage everyone, and especially the Public Service Commission, to consider facts and not fear and feelings. Let's go with the facts. If this impacts 1/3 of the people who will rent or buy property in Ocean City, that dramatically impacts our property tax, that dramatically impacts property values and our tourism-related taxes. That, therefore, we just can't print money. That impact, we have to balance our budget. We'll then have to raise our property taxes, which will impact all people who live in Ocean City, Maryland. We shouldn't be out of sight, out of mind, and just the people over there on the Eastern Shore. You know, we don't get a single job. We support the jobs and we support the economic impact, but we don't get $1 of the $16 billion. The residents of Ocean City, we don't get a single dollar of it. Brian James, you're wrong. We don't get a single job. Not one job's been promised.
Thank you, Councilman.
The power is not even promised.
The time of the gentleman has expired.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Donald Benzing.
Hi, good evening. My name is Don Benzing. I'm a retired naval officer with 30 years of military service. Been visiting Ocean City for over 60 years, coming to the town and to the beach. All activities have been a lot of fun, boardwalk, miniature golf. It's always been the beach and the ocean. When my wife and I were looking for retirement homes or for our second home, we looked at the Outer Banks, we looked at Virginia Beach, but we stayed and wanted to stay in the state of Maryland and go to Ocean City because the ocean was great and it was just a friendly, good place to be at. Anything to help save the environment's a great thing. Humans seem to be a great threat to our environment, and hopefully wind farms can help assist in our energy needs. But we also do need to do our part in saving the environment from what I'm calling visual pollution. My concern with the wind farm is not having one, but rather the problem of it being so close to the coast. If we can't find ways to have renewable energy while saving the horizon from the pollution, we're no better off than using fossil fuels for the next 100 years. Everyone talked about that. Everyone wants to do great things for the environment. The country wants to do great things. The state wants to do great things. The county wants to do great things. I'm 100% supportive of it, but we can't allow the quick return on investment that the companies want to make their money back to drive a timeline so that we're polluting the horizon. Other locations up and down the East Coast have found a way to make it work. Maryland's a great state that believes in the environment with renewable energy, but we need to find a solution to the visual destruction that will occur with proposed wind farms. We only have one horizon. Don't tarnish it. We're too smart to screw this up. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next on our list is Jared Johnson, Dana Simpson, and Deborah Batiste.
Hello, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, thank you for your time and thank you for allowing me to speak on this matter. My name is Jared Johnson. I have been a resident of Worcester County my entire life, minus my time at college. I was born in Salisbury, Maryland, and afterwards my parents took me back to their condo in Uptown Ocean City. My first breath outside the hospital was the Ocean City saltwater air. The first place I lived after college was an off-season condo in Ocean City, and now I'm a homeowner in neighboring Stockton, Maryland. Protecting my hometown from any threats or hazards is my top priority, as is the priority of my neighbors and constituents on the Eastern Shore. These wind turbines, however, pose very little, if any, threat to the local lifestyle and tourism industry here on the Eastern Shore. What we do not know is how many people will be offended by the hardly visible wind turbines off of the coast, and how many potential visitors or tourists will not come to the resort town of Ocean City because of this. What we do know is most everyone comes to Ocean City for the crabs, the drinks, the nightlife, the beach, the boardwalk, the French fries, and the various events that take place every single weekend. What we also know is that many long-term residents, visitors, and returning vacationers have grave concerns about the culture of Ocean City and the various dangers that occur every year, like the pop-up car rally, senior week, and the rapidly rising Part 1 crimes noted in 2020. What we do not know is what the future of renewable energy is and what role that will play on Maryland's Eastern Shore. But what we also do know is that the resistance of this project and others like it will only inhibit renewable energy from taking its place altogether on the Eastern Shore. While I sympathize with those against expanding this project, 13 miles off the coast of Ocean City is a long way to go. To put that in perspective, 13 miles is equivalent to driving the Chesapeake Bay Bridge 3 times. The odds of this project drastically impacting local businesses, local watermen, and the tourism industry on the shore is slim to none. And I hate to state the obvious, but those who are truly offended by wind turbines and refuse to be around them, there are over 150 streets in Ocean City, all of which have plenty of ocean, beach, sand, and skyline to choose from. Those on the fence about vacationing in Ocean City will not reconsider simply because of the turbines being an eyesore, but they will most likely reconsider because of the many issues that currently exist in the town during the summertime. Hearing the mayor of Ocean City talk about the length of government projects and mentioning that this specific project was approved back in 2017 with little progress now shows why these sorts of projects and discussions are important. Delaying this expansion will only serve to delay the progress in my hometown and the surrounding areas. For these reasons, I urge this commission to approve this request so that this vital project to develop offshore wind and renewable energy on Maryland's coast may begin. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call the next two speakers, and then we've had a few reports that some folks on the phone are having issue unmuting. So I am going to unmute everyone to try and get the people on the phone off mute. And then I'll remute the folks that aren't on the phone, and we'll try and give a few of them a call again. But next on our list is Dana Simpson, followed by Deborah Batiste.
Hi, and thank you for allowing me to speak about the wind turbines off of Ocean City. And I'm kind of sad to actually be speaking because we've been waiting for the turbines a very long time. And I've been to a couple of meetings in Ocean City and heard the commissioners several times make the argument that people don't want to see windmills off the coast and that it would destroy the horizon. And I have a couple of problems with that. The first one is that is assuming that everyone feels that way, which is not the case whatsoever. Many people think that windmills are beautiful. I'm one of them. My 86-year-old mother used to, every time she went to Deep Creek, she would go up and hug the windmills and demand to be driven by there to see them. What the windmills represent is a positive future for everybody on Earth, and a huge step in tackling the issue of fossil fuel use and getting to alternative energies. And there's many wonderful options out there besides wind, and we need to pursue as many as possible. There have been a ton of great arguments, clearly science, clearly economic, clearly lifestyle, supporting the windmills off Ocean City. And I think the main problem here is we have short view vision. And what has to come into place here is a long-term view. The long term is that we all know that we need to make drastic and clear changes from what we've been doing for the past centuries with fossil fuels. I heard the other day on the radio a concept that I think was very helpful. If we think that the Earth is a boat, we're all in this boat. Therefore, everyone in the boat has to be mindful of the actions that might affect other people in the boat. One person in the boat cannot drill a hole in the bottom of the boat because his feet are cold or are hot. We all need to consider the big view, the big picture, and how we are all perhaps making compromises here and there for the good of everyone. And the windmills are a fantastic positive step for Maryland in so many respects. And I really hope that the commissioners will not tarry anymore. The companies won't tarry anymore. We can move forward because time is of the essence. I live in Somerset County, and there's many times when we need to drive home through water to get to our house. And I know that people in Ocean City face flooding. People in Cambridge face flooding. The Eastern Shore of Maryland is on the forefront of climate change. So it's pretty apparent what needs to be done. And I sincerely hope that we can move forward now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Deborah Batiste, and then I will unmute folks. And when I do, I'll start with Susan Olson and Brian Ditzler.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Batiste. I live in Ocean Pines. And I have heard so many wonderful arguments for the continued wind energy development. And I'm not going to repeat all those. I'll just say I agree completely that I'm in favor of expanding the offshore wind energy development in Maryland. And Dana, I completely agree with you. I find wind turbines quite beautiful. I've seen them not only in this country, but in other countries as well. And they are a sign of hope to me that we are going to do better in the future. I'm here mainly as a grandparent. I really hope that in the years to come, when my grandchildren bring their families to Ocean City, that they will be proud of the work we have done in this generation and this time to help slow the Earth's warming, to decelerate sea level rise, and to save Ocean City from floodwaters. Ocean City has been our vacation destination, now going on the 4th generation. So this is a very important place to us. So I'm very supportive of us moving forward. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. I'm going to unmute everyone now to try and give our phone folks another shot at speaking tonight. And so I will try and recall Susan Olson and Brian Ditzler.
Not hearing Susan. This is Brian Ditzler. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland. and grew up vacationing with my family in Ocean City every summer. In fact, my family enjoyed a 2-week vacation at the beach again just last month. And I would have loved to see windmills generating clean energy offshore, as we saw when visiting Denmark decades ago, and one can easily see operating less than 4 miles offshore from Block Island in Rhode Island, and I'm told they love the windmills there. My family and I like to see wind turbines and solar installations because it says people are making smart decisions for the economy, our health, and the environment. A large-scale, long-term wind project offshore in Maryland would provide clean, renewable electricity to hundreds of thousands of Maryland residents, improve our health by lessening our dependence on climate and health-damaging fossil fuels, and would help protect wildlife and their habitats. Harnessing the power of wind can provide thousands of new jobs in wind turbine manufacturing, installation, and operation right here in Maryland. Unfortunately, we're now seeing climate-fueled wildfires, floods, droughts, intense heat, extreme cold, and highly damaging hurricanes happen more frequently. With more than 3,000 miles of tidal shoreline, Maryland is one of the states most vulnerable to inevitable continuing sea level rise. Experts warn that we must take unprecedented action to transform our economy and way of life to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. The UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's recent report found that global temperatures are now higher than at any point in the past 125,000 years as a result of human activity. The UN report warned that, based on countries' current climate pledges, greenhouse gas emissions could actually increase by 16% by the end of this decade. That would put the planet on track to warm by 2.7 degrees Celsius or 4.9 degrees Fahrenheit by the end of the century. And the impact of this on humanity, that includes our children and grandchildren, will be catastrophic. We're not an accident waiting to happen. We're part of an accident in the process of happening. We need to be on a more sustainable trajectory to address the growing problem of climate change. I recognize that the dark message of an out-of-control crisis is so overwhelming that a lot of people don't want to think about it. However, we must. PSC commissioners, it is imperative that you approve the new wind power applications. It's critically important to our economy, our health, the environment, and our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our list are Charlie Cooper, Andrew Goen, Sandy Bell, John Husson, and Nicholas DiMartino.
Thank you very much. I'm Charlie Cooper from Baltimore, a grandpa worried about my 3 grandchildren's future. Thank you for considering my opinion. I was an advocate for the bill Senator Pinsky sponsored that raise renewable portfolio requirements. The wind farms are essential to achieving the requirements of these laws, which should not be considered optional. I also ask, is there any factual or legal basis for the claim that a view shed has greater priority on public policy than portfolio requirements and the vital interests of every human being on Earth? We're losing 1.2 trillion tons of ice per year, 1.2 trillion tons on average, and it's accelerating. One of many reasons accelerating is we lose North Pole ice, and then that used to reflect the sun's rays back up into the sky, but it's not there anymore. So more warming occurs on the Earth. And we have huge problems with the Greenland glaciers and the West Antarctic glaciers that could disintegrate. So in one scenario, the Greenland glacier might be on track to give us a foot of sea level rise by the end of the century. But if the West Antarctic glaciers fracture, we're talking meters. What would happen to Ocean City then? And let's think about what climate change is already doing to human beings. People who migrated within their countries due to extreme weather events rose to almost 31 million by the end of 2020. That's 31 million people. And that's probably an underestimate. Governments are moving people because of this. So, for example, the government of Haiti has moved tens of thousands of people. The same in Vietnam, hundreds of thousands in Ethiopia, 1 million in the Philippines, and several million in China. So there's climate refugees who have to get by on their own. There's some who are moved by their governments. This is going to increase in number. The people of Ocean City, if they understood all this, they surely do not want to contribute to the creation of tens or hundreds of millions more climate refugees. The nations of Earth, and especially the US, are not achieving the inadequate goals of the Paris Climate Accords. If we did achieve them, all the evidence of climate damage that we are experiencing now will still continue to worsen for decades, and we'll have to spend tens of trillions of dollars to mitigate that damage, and only then will we have a stable, livable planet. So these dire trends completely overwhelm, in my mind, the claims that some people don't like to look at wind turbines. Everyone on Earth needs to contribute to the transformation to renewables and away from carbon-emitting fossil fuels, but especially those of us in the US and other wealthy nations that burn the vast majority of fossil fuels over the past century. Most of those climate refugees are in countries that burned almost nothing compared to us, and they're suffering. So we want to have a peaceful, prosperous Earth. We've got to make this transportation. We don't have time to think about perfection. We have to get going with these projects and many others. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just for our audience and the participants today, we've heard from about 30 individuals. We have about 40 more individuals to go. So probably another two hours, hour and a half, 2 hours. We'll keep moving through this, but please note that if you did register, you will be called. It just might be a matter of time. I believe the next speaker was Andrew Goen. After Mr. Goen, we have Sandy Bell, John Husson, Nicholas DiMartino, Chris Yoder, and David Saunders. Ms. Bell, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Please
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. I would like to say that I am a property owner in Ocean City on the Ocean Block. I personally do not mind whatsoever being able to see the wind farm from the shore. I think, first of all, they're going to look very small from the shore. Secondly, I think that there have been many places where they've had wind farms where people have actually taken tours to go out and see them. There are a lot of people that are excited about seeing a wind farm. I appreciate the testimony everyone else in favor of the wind farm has given earlier about all the science and everything else, so I'm not going to go into that. But I just want to talk about the fears of it's going to affect tourism, because I don't believe it. The buildings, the high-rise buildings in Ocean City that were approved by the town council, those are an eyesore in my opinion. And the other thing is, I don't know why anybody would want to come and stay in one of them when they can't go to the beach in the afternoon and have any sun. By the time the afternoon comes, those buildings shade the beach. So if you're staying there and you want to sit on the beach in front of your building, you have to go in the morning. So if they're worried about tourism, I don't know why they didn't think about things like that. And how about the planes and the boats that run up and down the shore with their ad banners? I'm sure there are a lot of tourists that don't want to see that either. So I don't think that tourism is going to be a problem. I think that there are going to be many people who are going to be excited to know that we're doing something to protect the environment, to want to go out and visit that wind farm. And I know that I'm okay with it. I'm most concerned about losing my property. If we don't do something about climate change and about the rise of sea level, there will be no Ocean City. So I hope that you will go forward with the wind farm, do it soon, just get it done. Like they said earlier, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has said we are at code red for the planet. We have no more time to waste getting this taken care of. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Do we have John Husson with us? Nicholas DiMartino.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Public Service Commission. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak in support of Maryland Offshore Wind. My name is Nicholas DiMartino, and I'm a proud member of the IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, here in Baltimore, Local 24. We represent Central Maryland and the Eastern Shore. I am one of the organizers in that office. I live in Anne Arundel County. However, my family has owned property in Ocean City. We have vacationed to Ocean City, Assateague Island, and all up and down the coast of Maryland. And so preserving the coast is a very important factor to me and my family. And I think that in order to achieve preserving the environment, we need to progress forward. The definition of insanity is often said doing the same thing, but expecting different results. So if we don't make changes now, I think that is going to make that case very, very well. With the approval of the U.S. Winds application, we will be changing the trajectory of Maryland by becoming the East Coast hub for offshore wind and a leader in the offshore wind industry. One important component of offshore wind development is the economic benefit. The revenue that will be created is too large for Maryland to overlook. It'll be noticed from every level of Maryland's GDP to the families of those who help to build and maintain wind turbines, both onshore and offshore. U.S. Wind has made commitments to use project labor agreements, which will create many opportunities to lift up Maryland residents, which in turn lifts up society. And that will be done by creating many good paying union jobs. We all want Maryland to be strong, and green energy like offshore wind is one of the fastest growing sectors of the economy. So I request that you approve the OREC application and help make Maryland strong. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Chris Yoder. David Saunders.
Hello, my name is David Saunders. After retiring from 40 years in the quality assurance field, I went back to school. I passed 4 exams, and I'm now certified by the Association of Climate Change Officers and the state of Maryland as a climate change professional. But I can tell you, studying climate change is quite depressing, and looking at the science of climate change is quite depressing. Intermediate CO2 projections of sea level rise shows that Ocean City is indeed in jeopardy. And that's depressing because I love ocean swimming and I love big waves. One practical approach comes for a solution to this sea level rise comes from a book titled Rewiring America by Saul Griffith. He describes a future built upon solar panels, wind turbines, batteries, and smart grids. And let me just quote something from the book which gave me hope. So this is a quote from the book. In the run-up to World War II, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt enlisted the entire U.S. economy in an effort to scale up production of war material. All of the country's resources were bent to the task. In 1939, the U.S. had 1,700 aircraft, but 6 years later, in 1945, we had 300,000 military aircraft and 18,000 B-24 bombers. We need a similar mobilization now to decarbonize the economy in order to avert the worst of climate change. This is what we need to do. And just as Maryland played an important role in building aircraft during World War II, we can also play an important role in building and deploying wind turbines. And I currently buy 100% wind power through BG&E for my home in Baltimore. And frankly, I love to watch the motion of wind turbines. I agree, they are a sign of hope. Thank you, and I urge approval.
This is Chris Yoder. You moved on before I could unmute. Can I speak?
Okay, Mr. Yoder, you're up.
Thank you. I'm a little bit surprised at how little confidence the civic fathers of Ocean City have in their community and the attractiveness of it. That they think that the appearance of some wind turbines or even a lot of wind turbines on the horizon would have an adverse effect. Ocean City has, to my knowledge, an awful lot of attractions. People go for the beach, people go for the boardwalk, people go for the parties, people go for many reasons. And I don't know of many people who sit on the beach or in their apartments or condos and gaze at the horizon. There might be some, but wind turbines are just as mesmerizing, in my view, as an empty horizon. So frankly, I discount those arguments. I think they're ill-founded. But even more importantly, we're in a crisis. Many people have alluded to it. Getting our grid onto alternative forms of sustainable, non-polluting energy is a little bit like planting a tree. When's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the best time to build a wind turbine farm? 20 years ago. Well, what's the second best time? Now, for each. And so my only complaint about the proposal is it's too little and it's late, but we can't go back in time and change that. So let's go forward, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder. I'm going to read the next 10 names and we'll go through them and then take a 5-minute recess after that point. So we'll next hear from Vaughn, Winston, Miller, Edmund, Thomas, Buchanan, Huslander, Daniels, Edwards, and Amy. Mr. Evan Vaughn.
Hi there, Commissioner. Just one moment. Actually, could you come back to me after the next speaker, please?
Pamela Winston.
Yes, thank you. Thanks so much for the opportunity to testify tonight. I'm from Silver Spring and I'm a frequent visitor to Ocean City. I guess I'm one of the tourists that folks are concerned about. I'm here to testify in favor of expanding offshore wind in Maryland and approving these applications to the maximum degree. Others have said a lot about the threats of climate change. I won't repeat all of that, except that it is going to get worse over time, and we are long overdue in addressing climate change in a serious and sustained way that it requires. And Maryland is behind in doing its part to move its grid to clean, renewable energy sources, in particular wind. So these offshore wind projects give us the chance to start to remedy this. And embracing the power of offshore wind will create a modern, clean energy economy for Maryland, and as others have testified to, provide us with hundreds, if not thousands, of new and well-paying jobs. U.S. Wind, as you know, is a Maryland-based company and has done everything possible to address local concerns. And there is, as others have alluded, even evidence that the effects on local tourism may in fact be positive. Research on other coastal resort destinations have actually shown a significant increase in reservations and occupancy rates after turbines were built. And these turbines were located much closer to the shoreline than what is proposed here. So turbines may actually draw tourism. Personally, I know that I would be thrilled to return to Ocean City for my vacations, especially knowing that wind turbines were sort of cranking away off the shoreline. And then finally, I want to close with an obvious point that others have made, but it really bears repeating. Without all of us taking every measure we can to expand clean energy like wind power and to combat climate change, Ocean City and other coastal locations throughout the country will not survive at the current rate of sea level rise. And we cannot let that happen. So please let Marylanders do our part in the climate battle and approve these applications for offshore wind power. And thank you so much for your time and your attention.
Thank you. Mr. Vaughn.
Great, I'm ready now. Thank you for that. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to speak today in strong support of offshore wind. The PSC's commitment here to public feedback is really admirable as well. My name is Evan Vaughn. I'm Deputy Director of the Mid-Atlantic Renewable Energy Coalition, a nonprofit organization that represents over 30 utility-scale wind and solar developers that are active in the PJM grid region of which Maryland is a part. We also represent U.S. Wind and Ørsted, which have the proposals before the Commission. I'm also a Maryland resident living here in Silver Spring, and I'm very concerned about the impacts of climate change on my personal life. It's why I got into this line of work, in fact. And like a growing number of Marylanders, friends, and neighbors, I know that folks want to buy more clean energy, and it should be able to come here from the state of Maryland. There's a real opportunity to grow Maryland's economy while making a meaningful step in the fight against climate change, as many others have said. The Maryland State Assembly has delivered legislation, the Offshore Wind Energy Act of 2013 and the Clean Energy Jobs Act of 2019, to achieve growth in renewable energy and offshore wind. And now it's up to the PSC to act quickly to make sure that the legislature's direction is administered. We appreciate your urgency thus far in moving this process forward, and we do urge you to not delay in awarding the full 1,200 megawatts of offshore wind through this next OREC procurement round. I'll just say a few things about the benefits of offshore wind, some of which have been said, but I think a few others I'll jump to are very critical. Obviously, there are environmental benefits from offshore wind, and many of the other speakers have elaborated on that substantially. The economic benefits are also huge. These proposals, either of them before the Commission, would create thousands of good jobs in Maryland, hundreds of millions of dollars in new private investment. And those are only the direct benefits that often get talked about, but there's increased workforce development, including for traditionally disadvantaged communities. There's going to be new state and tax revenues, not just from the projects, but also from all of the employment activity and supply chain activity that goes on. And there's even going to be potentially some new recreational fishing opportunities at the base of the turbines, like we've seen other parts of the world. And so Maryland's leadership at this critical moment in offshore wind can not only help the state achieve its clean energy goals, but it can help to position Maryland as a leader and a hub for offshore wind activity throughout the Mid-Atlantic region that I work in. And I want to say this hasn't been mentioned so much, but the cost of offshore wind has come down significantly. And though while the delay in the projects up until this point, I would add, has not been the result of developers and the company's delay, and it's been mostly a federal permitting process that's held up the projects. That has resulted in the cost coming down with some of these bigger turbines that you're seeing out there, the 10 to 12 megawatt wind turbines. In fact, the average unsubsidized cost of offshore wind energy has dropped by 27% since 2016 alone, according to an independent investment firm called Lazard. And those cost declines are a result of these more powerful turbines, which are more efficient. It's a result of the economies of scale. It's a result of supply chain investments. One other point on the environmental front I'd like to make is that offshore wind in Maryland is actually more environmentally beneficial than it is in many other parts of the world. A study by the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab has found that adding offshore wind into the PJM grid would actually cut carbon emissions faster than adding offshore wind in New York or New England. So you get more bang for your buck on the environmental side.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes, sir.
Your time has expired.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. We'll call Mr. Christopher Miller next.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Miller. I'm the Baltimore Regional Manager in the Mechanical Group for Riggs Distler & Company. We provide turnkey construction solutions for complex energy infrastructure projects, utilizing highly skilled project managers, safety professionals, unionized field employees, and subcontractors. I'm a local 486 pipe fitter, son of a local 193 boil maker who lives and works in the state of Maryland. My father recently retired from Riggs Distler with over 22 years of service and over 41 years in the mechanical industry. I mention this because he was part of the team at Riggs who had the original contract at Sparrows Point Steel Mill in Baltimore to erect and maintain 2 basic oxygen furnace units, also known as the BOFs. I've had a lot of opportunities at Riggs to manage and support critical infrastructure projects, and I believe offshore wind market brings great opportunities for my state. Riggs Distler recognizes and endorses offshore wind opportunities in Maryland believing they will stimulate economic growth for our union workforce and provide a more sustainable future for the cities in our Maryland neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Mark Emond, followed by Jenny Thomas, followed by Christina Hulslander, followed by Addie Daniels and Donna Edwards. Next would be Jenny Thomas. Scott Buchan.
Hi, this is Scott Buchan. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak at this hearing. My name is Scott Buchan. My wife and I have been vacationing regularly in Ocean City since 2014. In March of 2017, we bought a condo unit in the Sea-Watch building on 115th and Coastal Highway. We fully support the need for wind farms and other alternatives such as solar energy in order to address climate change and reduce the use of fossil fuels. Climate change and its impact on the planet is a serious threat with serious consequences for coastal communities. That said, we also support the tourism industries and rights of property owners in Ocean City. My wife and I bought our condo unit specifically for its layout and oceanfront view. We come to Ocean City frequently throughout the entire year. We very highly value the lovely ocean view from our balcony and living room. Much like thousands of other property owners and tourists, we would hate to see wind turbines alter and disrupt the calming and renewing experience of enjoying a clear ocean view all the way to the horizon. We appreciate and agree with all the comments that Councilman John Garrick provided earlier during this meeting. We fail to see why Ocean City cannot have the same reasonable protection for its coastline view that Virginia and North Carolina have negotiated of a 27 to 30 mile minimum distance to the wind farm facilities from their shores. I recognize that the wind farm operator will incur more cost for a farther transmission distance. However, the operator can recoup those expenses, especially over a 15, 20, or 30-year time frame, and with likely improvements in technology over that time, as Evan Vaughn alluded to. On the other hand, we believe the negative impact of disrupted ocean views on tourism and people's sense of well-being cannot be fully and accurately assessed, accounted for, or remediated with a 13-mile distance. And in response to some of the people who have spoken earlier tonight who believe that there would be no impact on tourism, I don't believe you have the facts to back up that up. We don't want Ocean City's lovely views to become synonymous with the views of oil derricks from the beachfront of some Southern Californian cities like Santa Barbara, Huntington Beach, and Seal Beach. We want a nice, clean oceanfront view that rewards the wellness and peace of everybody. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Next on the list is Christina Hulslander, followed by Addie Daniels, Donna Edwards, and Matthew Amy. Next would be Addie Daniels.
Hi there. My name is Addie Daniels. I thank you all for letting me speak here tonight. I am a resident of Baltimore County and someone under the age of 25 who frankly is going to have to live with the consequences of the decisions that you make here today. I'm here to support the 2 offshore wind projects proposed by Skipjack Offshore Energy LLC and U.S. Wind Incorporated respectively. I believe that if we want to seriously meet Maryland's clean energy goals outlined in SEPA, we must seriously consider the aforementioned proposals in order to reach that additional 1,200 megawatts of offshore wind generation. We also must move forward with these projects if we want to aid in job growth in a post-pandemic state and world. As Senator Van Hollen has mentioned of offshore wind projects in the past, investing in renewable energy sources like offshore wind will not only help us tackle the threats of climate change, but will also create thousands of clean energy jobs and boost Maryland's economy. And to some people who have concerns about the impact of these projects on tourism, I find that kind of shocking. I'm originally from New Jersey, and in Atlantic City, the city's 5 wind turbines draw some 15,000 visitors per year. 15,000 to see just the turbines, not the shore, the turbines. In Pennsylvania, the Somerset County Regional Chamber of Commerce has noticed a slight uptick in tourism because of nearby wind farms. And over on the other side of the country, in California, people pay $35 to go on a ferry that's 90 minutes long just to see wind farms off the coast of Palm Springs. I understand people's concerns about how this will affect their view, but I think ultimately, if you look at the short-term and long-term consequences of not addressing climate change, you're either giving up your coastline view or you're giving up your coastline. I thought I was going to have to come here and beg you all to think about my future. And I'm very happy for the people who are grandparents, who are parents, who have come and spoken on behalf of my future and the future of my generation. So I thank you all. I thank you all here tonight.
Thank you. Next is Donna Edwards and Matthew Amy.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for having these hearings. And I appreciate everyone who's taking the time to be part of a democratic process and let our opinions be heard. I'm Donna Edwards. I'm president of the Maryland State and District of Columbia AFL-CIO, representing 350,000 workers here in Maryland, unionized. But in addition to that, I'm also president of the AFL-CIO Northeast Council. That's all the states from Maine to West Virginia and Puerto Rico. And so I have been involved with the offshore wind, not only in Maryland, but all up and down the coast from Maine all the way through New Jersey, Delaware. We recently have had Virginia and North Carolina join into our energy table. And, you know, when we began many years ago, Maryland was actually the leader, and we have fallen behind. I have watched other states just leapfrog in front of us. So I am very excited to give our full support for the second round and really ask that all of the 1,200 megawatt credits be actually, you know, given out. And we've had the privilege of working with 2 outstanding companies, Ørsted and US Wind. Our building trades have a memorandum of agreement with both. Our manufacturing locals have an agreement with US Wind. The Seafarers International Union is working with the port. And not only are all of these involved, but, and we talk about the thousands of jobs that are going to be there in, you know, the construction point of putting these out in the water, but we also have seafaring jobs that are going to be there. And we're looking forward to, if Maryland really sees fit and moves forward and actually says, yes, we're back in the game and we want to do it big, we want to be part of that supply chain. And we can be part of that supply chain. And that's what this is going to do in the second round. Because we also know that both of these companies that we've been working with, they are committed to millions and millions of dollars and have already invested. So I just want to encourage that to really realize the true potential of offshore wind in Maryland and to capitalize on all of the opportunities in so many of our industrial areas and new to come, you know, our new manufacturing, that the Public Service Commission has got to open up all 1,200 megawatts for development. Let us jump ahead of some of the states that are out there, and we will have a cleaner environment and create good union jobs, sustainable family jobs, and we don't have to choose one or the other. Our children's future demands that we choose both, family sustaining jobs and a sustainable, clean environment. So thank you so much for this hearing and for everyone supporting this.
Thank you. Next is Matthew Amy.
Thanks. My name is Matthew Amy, and as a longtime resident of the Eastern Shore for the past 38 years, business owner for 25 years, a surfer and lover of the ocean, I'm speaking in support of wind turbines off the coast of Ocean City. It's very frustrating that this is still a point of discussion today, considering that the lease area for these offshore projects was established over 10 years ago. I have a couple points I'd like to address, which some of you already have. My first issue, which I think is ridiculous, is the idea that turbines will be a blight on the pristine ocean view. That concern is laughable. Anyone who has taken a moment to gaze out over the ocean during peak summer beach season knows how the humidity and haze impacts the view. That atmospheric condition would effectively block what is in reality a very limited view of the turbines to begin with. Ocean City has produced unrealistic computer renderings that are misleading and inaccurate, and concerns over an eyesore on our horizon are unfounded. My second point focuses on how these turbines may impact migratory birds, horseshoe crabs, and other marine life populations in the region. The issue has been thoroughly studied, and the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, NOAA Fisheries, and non-government organizations took great pains to properly cite the 80,000-acre Maryland lease area over 10 years ago. Their efforts were to make sure the wind turbines' locations would minimize fishing, shipping, and wildlife impacts. Now, I'm fortunate that my profession has allowed me to travel extensively. I've seen firsthand how, for decades, turbines have become integrated into other countries' landscapes and seascapes without ill effect. Take a drive along the coast of England, or the ferry between New Zealand's North and South Islands, or a train crossing waterways in Scandinavia, you'll have wind turbines in your view. For example, in Denmark, consistently ranked as one of the happiest countries in the world, you see turbines at every turn. Want to visit the famous Little Mermaid sculpture in the heart of its capital, Copenhagen? Good luck getting a photo of her without a turbine in the shot. We can see success stories along the Atlantic coast as well. The Block Island turbines in Rhode Island have shown how an offshore installation can actually become an eco-tourist attraction. The 2-megawatt wind turbine that was installed on University of Delaware's Lewis campus 10 years ago has not only generated enough clean energy to run the campus and contribute to the local community, it is also a local attraction and is used as a navigation tool by local mariners. Research studies using data collected at the turbine have contributed to innovations that help minimize wildlife impacts, particularly with the local bat population. We are years, even decades behind much of the rest of the world in shifting from fossil fuels to renewables, and we are missing a huge opportunity for Ocean City, the Delmarva Peninsula, and the Mid-Atlantic region if we do not move forward. I support this wholeheartedly, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone participating. We're going to take a quick break for our court reporter. And then when we return, first up will be Edward McNichol, followed by Ernest Pitarelli, Michael Azzarello, Rich Hall, and Deborah Kleinman. We will be back at 7:55. Thank you very much.
All right, we will go back on the record in case number 9666, the public comment hearing. Next up, we have Mr. Edward McNichol. You have 3 minutes, sir. If Mr. McNichol is not with us, we'll move to Ernest Pittarelli.
Hello, can you hear
Yes,
me?
we can hear you.
Okay, I didn't expect to have to get on this quick. Okay, get back to my notes here. Like some of the others have said, thank you. Good evening. I did speak at a previous hearing, and I'll probably change my what I was going to say a little based on previous speakers. I do support Ocean City's position on this. I support the previous property owner who spoke. My family's owned beachfront property since 1976, almost 50 years. It's indisputable that the beach view shed is the most important asset to that property. It's easy to see. You can just look at the difference in price of the exact same unit in the front of the building or looking at the bay, and it could be double. So can't dispute that. There's tens of millions of dollars of property owners whose views should be taken into account. And there was the 2010 study, the Offshore Wind Energy Task Force. For some reason, I said this before, for some reason, the Aztec Island area, I know you can't see this clearly, was given double the view shed of Ocean City back in 2010. So the wilderness area viewshed concerns were addressed, but apparently the town of Ocean City was not. Since that time, back then wind turbines were 300 feet high. Now they're over 800 feet high. So that 10-mile viewshed is completely obsolete at this point. I'm a wind energy supporter. I work in earth science, so don't get me wrong there. I'm a wind energy supporter. But I support moving the leasing area further out. We were able to do that in phase one, and these turbines are much bigger than initially proposed. And I don't support higher rates, electricity rates, without moving these further offshore. Another point I noticed was that the Ocean City representative mentioned that none of these things have been done so far. The tower and such that was supposed to be up a couple of years ago, and I can only wonder if the idea here is to get as much approved as possible before people see these going up on the horizon and then start asking questions. So I'm concerned about that. We know phase one is already approved. A lot of people don't understand. Phase one has been approved. They're probably going to get built unless something else comes in effect. Let's get that, see how the effect of that, and then move from there to expand all the credits, allow all the other credits to be given out before we've even seen the impact of phase one is irresponsible, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McNichol, I believe we see you're back. We called you right after the break. If not, we can move to Michael Azzarello, followed by Rich Hall, Deborah Kleinman, Jorg Lineman, and Mary Reese.
This is Michael Azzarello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, very good. I'd like to thank the commission for their time and late evenings put in for the citizens of Maryland. I am speaking to you in favor of allowing both Skipjack Offshore Energy and U.S. wind projects to move forward. I can't imagine having a conversation with future generations of where the beach used to be and why the condos and the oceanfront property is underwater. This project should have been moved forward a long time ago. We need to do everything we can for the environment for our future generations. We also need these good paying union jobs. Well, let me back up. Not good paying jobs, but good paying careers that provide health care and pensions where you can retire with dignity. Both of these firms support good paying union jobs, and I too support these jobs. As a 43-year member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers and a second generation electrician, the state of Maryland would certainly benefit from these projects, not only environmentally, but economically as well, with tax revenue that these jobs will create. So I encourage and beg the commission to move forward with these projects. It's time. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Mr. McNichol, have you unmuted? I believe it looks like you're unmuted now.
Yes, I am. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to express my opinions about the proposed offshore wind farm. I am not opposed to wind energy or putting wind turbines in the ocean, as long as it's done responsibly. But I am opposed to wind turbines ruining the beauty of Astig Island and the Ocean City seashore. U.S. Wind is proposing 100 turbines, 800 feet tall, starting at 300 or 13 miles away. If the project's proponents are telling you that 800-foot high turbines will not be visible or barely visible due to curvature of the Earth or atmospheric conditions, they are not telling you the truth. Search for horizon on Wikipedia. On that page, you will find a formula for calculating visibility to the horizon, reprinted from an article called Distance to the Horizon by Andrew T. Young at the San Diego State University Department of Astronomy in October of 2003. It is the square root of the sum of the observer's height plus the object's height times 1.225 to get the distance in miles. If you were standing on the boardwalk, an 800-foot turbine would have to be 35 miles away to be completely invisible. As for visibility in humid ocean atmospheres, how many of you have watched the moon rise over the ocean and marveled at the craters, fissures, and crevices with just your eyes from more than 250,000 miles away? Trust me, it won't be the same with a row of 100 blinking lights underneath of it. Almost everyone wants green energy. As our population increases, so does demand for more energy. Harvesting energy from the wind instead of burning more fossil fuels sounds like a great idea. It is understandable why the project's developers, Ørsted US Wind, don't want to move the project further offshore. We're talking about money. 13 miles from our beaches, the water is just 70 feet deep. If you move 30 miles out, the depths increase to more than 100 feet. Each turbine's supporting structure would have to be increased substantially, not to mention the additional submarine transmission cable that would have to be laid. Ørsted Wind is no stranger to building wind farms farther offshore. They recently completed a pilot project 27 miles off Virginia Beach in deep water and have plans for a 2,640 megawatt farm there. The technology exists for deep water turbines. The Beatrice project in Scotland was built in 140 feet of water. The Hywind Scotland and Hywind Norway projects used floating platforms. Yes, it is more expensive, but Maryland's seashore and the incomparably beautiful Astig Island are worth it. People come from all over to visit our beaches. They come to vacation, they come to escape. They come east to the edge, the boundary between civilization and the still wild ocean and sky above. They come to stand in the sand with their backs to all of mankind's industry and development and gaze out on God's creation, unspoiled by man's hand. We have one chance to get this right. We decide to build this, which I believe should be built. It's a great thing. We just need to move it to where it should be. I'm going to leave you with a quote from Lord Byron. There is pleasure in the pathless woods. There is rapture in the lonely shore. There is society where none intrudes. By the deep sea and music in its roar, I love man not the less, but nature more. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Next on the list is Rich Hall, followed by Deborah Kleinman, Jorg Lineman, Mary Reese, and Philip Hemler.
Good evening. My name is Richard Hall, and want to thank the chairman and the commissioners for allowing my testimony. I support the applications. I was born and raised on the Eastern Shore, the Lower Eastern Shore, as a matter of fact, and I live in Ocean City. So I live in Ocean City. I live in Baltimore City, but I have lived in Ocean City in the past. And so I'm familiar with the state, and I think climate change is certainly important and most obvious for those along the shoreline, but it's also important statewide. It's not only something that we can really see with sea level rise and more and more loss of places like Blackwater and Dorchester County, but it also is a big factor in our more frequent and more violent, stronger storms. As many can remember, Ellicott City and Howard County made national news with some of the flooding that got from a very intense storm several years ago, and someone even lost their lives. We see the impact of climate change in places very obviously around the Annapolis docks. We see it down around Fells Point in Baltimore City. We've heard about the incinerator in Baltimore City and what that does. And from an environmental justice perspective, we need other sources of energy, renewable sources of energy, and we need them now. Another point I like to highlight is that actually I love Ocean City, and I will love it more with the turbines there. So I also want to echo a lot of what I heard earlier tonight, but especially the testimony from Senator Paul Pinsky and Ms. Hartwell. So just trying to keep it short and sweet here. We've all been on here for quite a while tonight, but I appreciate having the opportunity. I encourage the Commission's support of these applications. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Next on the list is Deborah Kleinman, Jorg Lineman, Mary Reese, Philip Hemler, and Stephen Cortian.
Hi, I'm the third Deborah, and thank you so much for hearing my testimony. I am the chair of the Greater Baltimore group of the Sierra Club. We cover Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Harford County, and just on a personal note, I, as a child, was always upset about pollution and trees coming down. I studied natural resource management and biology education. In the 80s, I was an anti-nuclear activist. We were worried that the planet could be destroyed by nuclear weapons. And now there's an existential concern of our times right now as a non-livable planet for humans and other species. I believe that we really need to have this wind energy in Maryland, and it's beyond the time that it should have been done. Like my colleague Chris Yoder said, you know, when should we plant a tree? 20 years ago. My family, we have solar panels, we have electric cars, we're vegetarians, we compost. Our children who are in their 30s, they have an all electric car now, and they've got solar panels, and they're raising their children to think about this in the future. If we could see air pollution, if we could see what comes out of our cars, we wouldn't be able to, we wouldn't be able to actually see. And one of the things about um, coal and all the other places that we get energy is that it happens so far away and we don't necessarily see it in Maryland. But I live in Baltimore County and I work with the children. I'm a teacher in Baltimore City, and the asthma rate because of the incinerator and all of the polluting energies, the fossil fuel industries, our time has come to do the right thing in Maryland. And children are getting so upset about the earth and the climate catastrophes that are happening. And I just want to really implore, I want people to think of our children and our grandchildren, because I have 5 grandchildren as well. And I just want us to rethink how we're doing things in Maryland. And I personally love wind turbines as well. And I would definitely pay money to go out and take a boat ride near these, because when I see solar panels and I see wind turbines, it gives me hope for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next on the list is Georg Leineman, followed by Reese Hemler, Courtien, and then Anna Fendley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the Commission. Just a little common sense. My name is George Leineman, and I moved to Baltimore and then to Ocean City in 1972. I was 14 years old, and I am now 63. A full-time resident, 49 years and counting, and before that, my family and I would travel here for family vacations. For the record, I welcome wind and solar in our community. I welcome the idea of being carbon neutral. I understand the dangers of climate change and understand it's a global issue, one town and one state at a time. I also understand the importance of the jobs rejuvenated. For a moment, let us put a little common sense and reality into the wind farm being built 13 miles off of Ocean City. It's truly not a blurb on the horizon, but 104 85-story structure that will be built and seen from our coast, as the renderings have shown. Right whales and horseshoe crabs take note, but for the greater good, this may be more important. Reality check. We are not fishing in these exclusion zones, and if I were U.S. Wind, I wouldn't allow boats to drop anchor to get near these expensive structures or snag cables. Solar energy power plants are always fenced to protect their investments, as they should. I am so encouraged by the Eastern Seaboard's designations for wind energy in our oceans. Well, what have the other municipalities learned regarding visual distances from the beach and what an 850-foot structure will look like from their beach? All municipalities and states quickly learned to have restrictions of 20 and 30-mile limitations rather than 13 miles off our state's only 10-mile stretch of coast. Banner planes, parasailing restrictions can be easily changed by the will of our community in which they provide these services. Power plants, once initiated, will never move. Common sense should dictate to those of us that wish to highlight a visible power plant as Ocean City's entire skyline, or something a bit less visible 20 to 30 miles away. I wish for a rendering or a video of the new evening industrial skyline of twinkling red airline or airplane warning beacons, or a rendering that shows 20-year life expectancy of rusted turbines and the end game of these structures clearly defined. Will they be quickly dismantled or as to be an eyesore some 13 miles off our beach? Will we choose to live in another community where the rusted industrial turbines aren't a part of their skyline 20 years from now? I choose Ocean City and the wonderful state of Maryland and their leaders' decisions that we have entrusted in them to make. Please move the power plant from our sight line, and let's have some fun building it. We truly only have one chance to get this right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mary Reese, followed by Philip Hemler, Stephen Cordian, Anna Fenley, and Wayne Frazier.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you this evening. I have a very, very personal investment in the topic being discussed tonight because I live in Ocean City, right on the dune line of the Atlantic Ocean. And so whatever happens out there in the water, it's gonna hit my eyes first. And I'm not looking forward to seeing a line of gray pickets looking like a fence 13 miles off my shore, or having to go to sleep with my last vision, those red blinking lights that were just described so eloquently by the previous speaker. I really appreciate the efforts that Mayor Moen and the Ocean City Council have put forth in the last several years to protect and preserve Ocean City's ocean view. All of us support clean energy. I've not heard one single speaker this evening speak against the clean energy that wind farms will bring to us. The issue is, are we going to build something that's going to be an eyesore and possibly a scrap pile 20 years from now, or are we going to build something that's going to be sustainable? I have lived a long time, and I've studied history. And history tells us, and in my 66 years, I have seen some very tragic collateral damage done to people and our earth in the name of progress. We need to give more thought to what we are approving tonight. I am of the opinion that the companies and the people behind the development of this huge wind farm project are very intelligent. It takes a lot of intelligence to be able to design, develop, build, and maintain these wind farms. But I also think these people have the smarts to do this by placing the nearest wind turbines no nearer than 20 to 30 miles off our shore. All it takes is the will to do it. Our commission can put some willpower into making that happen. I ask everyone that's in the range of my voice tonight to think about this. And in order to achieve something that we all want, clean energy, wouldn't it be ironic to do so at the cost of losing the awesome view of our ocean's horizon? A horizon that has been here since the beginning of time. Please move these wind turbines more than 20 miles off our shore. Leave my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren the legacy that I would like to leave them by continuing to make memories here in Ocean City at my beach home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Philip Hemler, followed by Stephen Cordian, Anna Fendley, Wayne Frazier, and Dave Arndt.
Hi, I'm Phil Hemler. I'm cool with going green, but make it unseen. I'm a property owner in the heart of Ocean City. Millions of dollars will be changing hands to build these wind turbines and address climate change. So for a few dollars more, we can have it all and move the windmills out of sight. This is not a wind farm we're talking about. It's a wall. It's a fence. It's certainly not a farm with livestock or crops. This wall or fence of windmills will divide Ocean City from simple sunrises over the Atlantic Ocean. These windmills will appear as a fence enclosing an area very close to the beach and will hinder the perfect view of the natural horizon. This wall fence will impede beachgoers from experiencing the simple pleasure of a natural sunrise over the Atlantic Ocean. Going green to save the environment is good, but to get green, there needs to be a green plan. This proposed plan that has the wall in clear sight is not as green as it can be. As a matter of fact, it's actually creating visual pollution. By putting the wind wall so close to the coast that it can be seen by the naked eye is nothing short of visual pollution. The purpose of green and unseen is to see a beautiful landscape, a beautiful sunrise, a perfect horizon. But if we have a wall of windmills in our sight, we have then nothing short of a visually polluted horizon. We have a unique opportunity to address climate change, save the environment, and save our horizon at the same time. If having a wind wall is the future, and it will be a sustainable form of energy for generations to come, then let's get this right and ensure future generations enjoy clean air without a visually polluted horizon. Destroying natural beauty should not be collateral damage for going green. How can we tell future generations that there was once beauty and it was taken away because someone wanted to save some money by keeping the wind wall so close to shore? Was the savings of a few dollars worth visually polluting Maryland's #1 beach town? Going green by using wind is good because wind is everywhere. Unlike oil or coal, you can find wind anywhere, be it 13, 20, 25, 30 miles offshore. So why not build them and make them unseen? I would hope Ocean City can have equity with other East Coast states that have already set a precedent. New York, Virginia, and North Carolina have their wind fences at least 20 miles off their coasts. If moving the windmill wall out of sight costs a bit more, that's a small price to pay to preserve a view for future generations, a God-given view of nature that is truly unique to coastal states. How do you put a price tag on preserving a view of nature that has existed since the beginning of time? This is akin to the Joni Mitchell's Big Yellow Taxi environmental song from 1970. She sang about they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. In their case, they fenced in paradise and put up a windmill wall, took away the view just to go green, and we will not know what we had until it's gone. We will have free and or reduced electric rates because of, or will we have free and or reduced electric rates because of the windmill wall? Actually, I'd be willing to pay just a little bit more to have the wall a bit out of sight.
Thank you. Mr. Hemmler, your time is expired.
Thank you. We have Cordian, Fendley, Frazier, Arndt, and then Spencer Rowe.
Sorry about that. Good evening. I'm Stephen Cordian. I'm the president of the Baltimore DC Metro Building Trades. The Baltimore DC Metro Building Trades is an affiliate organization of all the building trades unions in Maryland, consisting of over 26,000 construction workers. We work with over 1,000 construction companies and owners in the state to ensure their projects are completed on time and on budget by providing the most skilled and highly trained craftspeople in our industry. We all support this project for many reasons. With the country and the state of Maryland moving away from fossil fuel, there is a growing need for renewable energy. Offshore wind will generate jobs while reducing reliance on carbon-emitting sources of energy. Those former jobs used to be very well-paying, good union jobs. Both developers are showing their commitment to providing careers that provide family-sustaining pay and benefits in the construction industry, and specifically in the renewable energy segment, by making a commitment to the building trades to engage in a project labor agreement to ensure their commitments are met. Besides the family-sustaining pay and benefits, the agreement will also include training and ensure local residents are able to work on these projects in one of the fastest growing markets in the country. Offshore wind power development represents a generational opportunity for hardworking men and women in the building trades. and will result in thousands of new local family-sustaining jobs. We're already beginning to see the jobs from investment made right here in Maryland. The Skipjack Wind project has resulted in $45 million worth of investment, 13 million of which went towards increasing the bearing capacity of Trade Point Atlantic quayside to be able to handle future offshore wind construction. If successful, the Skipjack 2 project will expand that investment to a combined figure of over $625 million. Skipjack 1 and 2 will deliver over 2,000 jobs in construction and manufacturing. As an organization, we do hold a conference, a very large conference, every year in Ocean City. Our members and our leadership will be proud to continue to hold that there, where we're able to look at something we built in the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Anna Fenley, followed by Wayne Frazier, David Arndt, Spencer Rowe, and Kevin Gibbs.
Evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to comment this evening. My name is Anna Fenley, and I am the United Steelworkers Director of Regulatory and State Policy, commenting tonight on behalf of the United Steelworkers Union. Our union is largely a manufacturing union that publicly recognized the threat of climate change in 1990. We have a long history of supporting the growth of offshore wind in Maryland and up and down the East Coast, which, if done correctly using U.S.-made materials and U.S. workers, has the potential to retain and create many jobs. For this reason, our union urges you to approve the 1,200 megawatt build-out that U.S. Wind has proposed. This is an ambitious and exciting proposal that would show that Maryland is a leader in doing the right thing for both the environment and for working families. In conjunction with the proposal for an offshore wind project, U.S. Wind is proposing to stand up Sparrows Point Steel to make monopile foundations, initially for their own projects and eventually for offshore wind projects up and down the East Coast. This facility will be on the site of the old Bethlehem Steel Mill at Sparrows Point, a sacred place for our union where our members spent generations making the steel for some of the most notable and the most everyday parts of our nation's history. Union jobs at the steel mill once supported families and the community. This opportunity to bring as many as 500 steel jobs back to Sparrows Point is the chance that Maryland has to secure itself as a key player in the growing offshore wind supply chain by using the existing port infrastructure at the former steel mill. U.S. Wind's proposal to develop an offshore wind project in Maryland and to locate manufacturing in Maryland and to partner with unions and to hire a local workforce is unique among offshore wind developers. Nearly all of the speakers tonight have supported the development of offshore wind in one form or another. And I want to underscore that you have the power to help ensure that Maryland's development is done right. And doing it right means with U.S. workers and U.S.-made materials. We appreciate you holding this hearing, and we urge you to approve U.S. Wind's application. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Wayne Frazier, followed by David Arndt, Spencer Rowe, Kevin Gibbs, and Connie Reinhold. After Frazier is Dave Arndt.
Yes, hello, this is Dave Arndt. I'm a longtime resident of Maryland and a frequent vacationer at Ocean City. I urge the Commission to approve this measure. At stake isn't just the electricity mix, it's the future of human beings on this planet. The power sector is a leading source of cancer-causing air pollution and the nation's second largest source of carbon dioxide. If we do nothing to clean it up, we condemn ourselves to facing the worst consequences of climate change. The thing about offshore wind is the winds are much steadier offshore, which means the turbines are going to be producing on a more consistent basis. And with new battery technologies coming online like iron flow, the need for gas and coal fire plants backup is reduced significantly. Wind turbines provide good and long-lasting jobs for Maryland that can't be outsourced. And with the announcement of wind turbine manufacturing in Baltimore, this is a win-win for the Maryland economy. Always a big question is, What is the risk to fishing, to ocean life and birds? Because that's always been a big issue. This has been studied a whole lot. If you think about birds, the European experience is and has been well documented is that birds learn to go around turbines and around the wind farms themselves completely. Also, the coal industry is responsible for killing 24 times more birds than wind turbines. Estimated bird deaths from wind turbines are small when compared to other human caused sources like aviation mortality, like the results of running into glass buildings and domestic cats. Finally, it is now accepted that the greatest threat to birds today is climate change due to change in habitat. From a marine life perspective, you're indeed altering the seabed. For some species, that's probably a problem. For other species, this is actually a good thing. It's like an artificial reef. In terms of sports fishing, people can continue to fish. For other species, Europe has implemented mitigation programs, which we can do. However, again, the biggest threat to population is due to climate change issues like temperature rise, acidification, and Gulf Stream weakening. The only issues I hear in this talk is it's going to ruin my visuals. But I could say the same thing. I don't like high rises, barges going by, and advertising planes going overhead or offshore. So indeed, the only real issue is Ocean City crying, not in my backyard. But without this, they will not have a backyard or a front yard either. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Spencer Rowe, followed by Kevin Gibbs, Connie Reinhold, David Moeller, and Faith Howarth. Next is Kevin Gibbs. Followed by Connie Reinhold. Followed by David Moeller. David, we see you, but we can't hear you.
Okay, how's this?
We can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thanks for the opportunity. I'm here speaking as a resident of Delaware, and I'm not advocating either for or against the wind farm, but I've seen in the paper some writings that at least some of the windmills were going to be planned to be off the coast of Delaware. Now, based on Chairman Stanik's comments earlier, I'm not sure that that is still the case. But regardless, there's been a lot of dialogue about the power coming ashore in Delaware. And what I don't understand is, you know, it appears to me that Maryland basically has overdeveloped the Ocean City coastline and does not have any place to bring the power ashore. So it almost seems like they don't want the power to come ashore in Maryland as it's like a not in my backyard kind of mentality. I don't understand why Delaware would have to sacrifice or give up our shoreline to bring the power. And if we do, you know, why should all the benefit go to Maryland? I mean, why not Delaware get the clean air credits? Why doesn't Delaware get the opportunity for some of these jobs we talked about, especially the continuing careers that we're speaking about? I understand we may not have some of the manufacturing capabilities that they have in Baltimore, but when it comes to long-term careers and maintenance and things of that nature, it seems to me that the benefit should be going to Delaware. I just hope that the committee, at some point, when they have the public eye, can clear up some of these issues. I understand you may not be able to address that today, but you know, all of the discussions we've seen in the public venues have failed to address this. I would like to see that addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Faith Howarth, followed by Andrew Gone and Angela Burke, Peggy Schultz, and Patrick Klein. Next would be Andrew Gone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Good evening. I'm Andrew Gahn. I'm the Eastern Region Director for the American Clean Power Association, formerly the American Wind Energy Association. We deeply appreciate the opportunity to comment in this public hearing on behalf of our 800 members, including manufacturers, owners, purchasers, and investors of renewable energy generation in Maryland. Maryland has been on the cutting edge of offshore wind policy since the passage of the landmark Offshore Wind Energy Act of 2013, which created a policy framework that culminated in the issuance of OREC orders for 348 megawatts in Maryland's wind energy area that the Federal Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, in consultation with state and local governments, had designated. But since that time, the global offshore wind energy sector has grown dramatically, over 34,000 megawatts currently deployed, principally in Europe and China. And the Biden administration has now set a target of installing over 30,000 megawatts by 2030. So the national target can be fulfilled by state goals in just 6 East Coast states, just to identify how, how much the states are behind this. Maryland's neighbors in Virginia, for example, have put in place offshore wind deployment goals of 5,200 megawatts by 2034, with Dominion Energy there already operating 2 large turbines off that state's coast. New Jersey's goal is even more staggering, with 7,500 megawatts by 2035. Given the scale of these investments, that'll naturally drive significant economic benefit to those states. Against this backdrop, the legislature determined in the Clean Energy Jobs Act of 2019 that Maryland needed to commit to at least an additional 1,200 megawatts of offshore wind energy to maintain the competitive edge that the state had gained as an early leader in this space. So ACP deeply appreciates the hard work of PSC staff in implementing this aggressive deployment plan and timeline. As a result, Maryland is now in a position to lock in the additional 1,200 megawatts and secure massive economic investments that will follow. Just want to say the US Wind and Ørsted are 2 developers who have been selected to construct the initial projects from the 2013. They've each submitted proposals to build new offshore wind facilities. That's obviously the point of this hearing, but I would just say both companies are members of ACP in good standing. It wouldn't be appropriate on us as a trade association to make any recommendations on the merits or substance of those proposals, but we just urge the commission to carefully consider all eligible proposals in this matter and proceed with speed and resolve to meet the urgency of this moment. Marylanders overwhelmingly support offshore wind, and the value proposition of the technology continues to improve. Up and down the East Coast, policymakers are realizing the incredible economic benefits of investment in offshore wind energy, and Maryland risks falling irrevocably behind in the regional race to secure these investments. So, as always, I'll conclude, ACP seeks to be a resource to the Commission as you weigh these important matters. The challenge before the Commission and staff and state agencies is extraordinary, but the work could not be more important, and we appreciate your consideration of these proposals and urge the Commission to move forward expeditiously to determination for benefit of state clean energy future for all Marylanders. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Angela Burke, followed by Peggy Schultz, Patrick Klein, Malcolm Taylor, Dennis Smith, Gail Landy, and Patty Fredericks. After Angela is Peggy Schultz.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Offshore Wind. I'm substituting for Kara Hoffner, who had a family emergency. I'm representing the League of Women Voters of Delaware. I'd like to share the results of several fairly recent studies on the effects of offshore wind and climate change. In 2020, a study was carried out by the Delaware Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Control. In this study, 70% of Delaware residents say that Delaware should take immediate action to reduce climate change impact. A 2014 survey performed in person at Delaware Coast Day presented visual simulations of wind farms and asked people whether they would change a trip based on the presence of those turbines. Over 98% of 197 people surveyed said they would not change their plans. A University of Delaware study done just 2 years ago used simulations to poll 1,725 East Coast beachgoers. When viewing turbines 20 miles offshore, roughly 70% of respondents said their experience would be unaffected, with half of the remaining respondents saying the presence of turbines would actually make their experience better. In the only objective U.S. study measuring the effect real turbines had on tourism, 2019 Airbnb data showed a significant increase in nightly reservations, occupancy rates, and monthly revenues for properties in Block Island during peak summer season, after the offshore turbines had been installed as compared to previous summers. As a reminder, these turbines are only 3 miles off the coast of Block Island. The League is a vigorous supporter of offshore wind, and we support this application. I have in hand a couple of simulations that Ørsted did with the Skipjack project off Bethany Beach and off Maryland shore. And I can't show them because they don't show up here, but I will just testify that you can barely see these little things on the horizon. They're just little tiny white dots. And these turbines are over 2 football fields tall, yet at 20 miles, they just almost fade away.
Thank you. Next on the list is Patrick Klein, followed by Malcolm Taylor, Dennis Smith, Gail Landy, and Patty Fredericks.
Thanks, Chairman and the Commission. My name is Patrick Klein. I'm the project manager, one of many at Crystal Steel Fabricators. Crystal Steel is a minority-owned business enterprise in the state of Maryland, and we fabricate more than 20,000 tons of structural steel each year. We operate from 5 different locations across the eastern seaboard, including our newest and largest plant in Federalsburg, Maryland, in Caroline County. We have invested approximately $6 million in our Federalsburg facility since 2016, where we currently employ more than 50 Maryland residents. To be ready to serve the upcoming offshore wind industry here in Maryland, we plan to invest an additional $5 million to be able to fabricate the specialized steel platforms and boat landings necessary for the Maryland offshore and wind projects. Crystal Steel will be awarded a significant contract to fabricate secondary steel for New Jersey's Ocean Wind 1 project. If Maryland awards the offshore wind projects that are in front of the Maryland Public Service Commission, we are in a prime position to be awarded a significant part of that project as well. Crystal Steel has been fortunate to have developed a long-term relation with Ørsted, one of the applicants for the offshore renewable energy credits in this matter. And both Crystal Steel and Ørsted have a shared commitment to deliver jobs and investments on the eastern shore of Maryland. Ørsted has demonstrated a vested and honest interest in supporting Crystal Steel's efforts to contribute to the offshore wind supply chain here in Maryland. And we are eager and excited for the opportunity to partner with Ørsted should be awarded OREX by the PSC. In conclusion, we fully and enthusiastically support the Maryland offshore wind projects that are in front of the PSC, and we encourage the PSC to award all the OREX applied for in this matter. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Malcolm Taylor, followed by Dennis Smith, Gail Landy, and Patty Fredericks.
Hi, my name is Malcolm Taylor. I'm here on the behalf of the Surfrider Foundation Ocean City, Maryland chapter. I live and work in the Annapolis area, and my family has a house in Ocean Pines, so I'm part of the Ocean City community. I hold a PhD in environmental engineering and have dedicated my career to providing essential water and wastewater services to Maryland residents. However, I want to focus my time today on the jobs that this opportunity will create. In a time when our federal government fails to make any significant progress on infrastructure investment It is incumbent upon state officials like yourselves and private companies to build partnerships to take the lead. The energy sector has and will continue to evolve away from carbon-based fuels. This fact presents Maryland with a unique opportunity to create hundreds of good-paying, skilled jobs while revitalizing the Sparrows Point area, once a backbone of Maryland industry. Once established, the proposed production facility can be used to support wind energy projects up and down the East Coast, thus creating job opportunities for years to come. If Maryland does not step up, someone else will. We cannot afford to pass up the chance to create hundreds of local jobs while also combating climate change. To those that remain in opposition, I ask you to consider the following. Are you willing to explain to a steel worker or a pipe fitter that you oppose the creation of Maryland jobs simply because you are concerned about your view? As a Maryland resident and a member of the Ocean City community, I fully support the development of offshore wind off the coast of Maryland, and I urge you to do the same. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Next is Dennis Smith, followed by Gail Landy and Patty Fredericks. After Dennis is Gail Landy. And Patty Fredericks. Mr. Chairman, that is all I have on my list.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. At this time, are there any speakers who pre-registered that we either skipped or did not have an opportunity to speak this evening? If so, please speak now. Yes, Miss Diane, I see your hand is raised. If you could unmute.
Unmuted.
Yes, ma'am. Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. My name is Diane Dye, and I'll just say what I wanted to say. And thank you for letting me speak. I would also consider myself an environmentalist. I probably have a little bit different opinion than many of the speakers. I have some very big concerns with the wind farm. I am very concerned about birds, and I heard what other people were saying. To me, I kind of look at wind farms and what pops into my head is bird killing field. But one of the things we love in Ocean City is sitting on the beach, watching the pelicans and all the other birds. And it just makes me feel very sad to think that those windmills might be out there and killing birds, the transmission cable that's going to have to come to shore. I'm very concerned about what that might do to the ecosystem in the ocean. So those things really do concern me. And I realize the green energy. I know we have lots of other good energies that will be coming into play. Also, a lot of the fossil fuel energies, I don't think we give some of them enough credit for what they're doing to clean up their energy production. So to me, and I know I'm not sure how far away the windmills, I was listening to the one man where he had what you would calculate where you could see the windmills. So I really don't want to see it. I don't really feel like I'm being selfish. I feel like there's many, many people who don't really want to look out on the horizon and see windmills. And I'm in agreement with the one other lady. I don't like the high rises either. So, but I have to look at them. But I think many of us, we love looking out to the horizon and just seeing what's naturally there and not seeing the windmills. Another aspect of it is most of these windmills are made in China. All the problems with China, I'd really be much happier if we were not connected, if we could decouple from China as much as possible. Also, my husband and I have taken trips driving around the country, and we've seen where the windmills, the ones after they get old and some of them don't work anymore, then we have to get rid of them, and they're made with a lot of toxic materials. So that's another issue that I have with them. So I think that's, there's not a whole lot else I had to say, but that's how I feel about it. And so I'm hoping we don't get them. I know I'm not in agreement with the majority of people, but if it does come to pass, I hope they're far enough out that we don't see them. But so there's my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Dye.
Yes.
On behalf of myself and my four colleagues, I'd like to thank all of the individual citizens, elected officials, and other interests that have taken the opportunity to spend much of their evening with us tonight. As I noted at the outset, the Commission will accept public comments, written public comments, via our comment portal on the homepage of the PSC website through November 19th of 2021. Once again, thank you for being a part of the process in case number 9666 and for sharing your views with us tonight. This public comment hearing is now adjourned. We are off the record. Have a good evening.